Yo. Forgot to put the video behind me there. Usually I was trying something clever in the last few times and just fading it out gently rather than this sudden abruption of the music stopping. But welcome to VOX World. I'm your host, as always, Kane Sims. And I am joined today, looking forward to this conversation. It's another Gartner Magic Quadrant company, conversational AI platform, Yellow AI. I'm speaking to Kishore Reddy, who's the co-founder and CTO. And we're going to be diving into the platform and generally actually talking about the whole conversational AI pipeline and the kind of components that you need if you're going to start trying to set up yourself to have success with conversational automation and such. But before I bring on Kishore, I'd like to give a shout out to our presenting sponsor today, Deepgram. If you've been tuning into the podcast over the last few months, you'll be familiar with Deepgram. It is industry-leading speech recognition technology. Companies all over the world are using Deepgram to build conversational AI at immense accuracy. The speech recognition is really accurate. It's compared to other providers out there, it is pretty good. And you can also retrain it based on your specific industry or product type or service type or the particular dialect of your kind of customers and users, which is something that not many organizations do. And then people wonder why they don't have that much accuracy coming through the NLU. It's because you're feeding it full of rubbish. So if you were to use something like Deepgram, you can retrain it, you can get even more accuracy. It's incredibly cost effective and it's incredibly quick as well. If you want to try and get speech into text and feed it into your NLU system, then get a response back. For it to be human-like, it needs to happen quickly, and every part of the stack needs to happen quickly as well. So Deepgram has immense accuracy on that front. And speed rather. So please do go and check out deepgram.com/VUX world if you want to learn more about that. Deepgram.com/VUX world. And if you're not already subscribed, please do go to vux.world and subscribe. You'll get all of the notifications for up and coming podcasts with industry thought leaders like Kishore Reddy and others who we have twice a week now, actually. It's going. So we're going pretty well. So please do go to vux.world/subscribe to make sure you never miss out. Plus, you'll get our newsletter as well, which summarizes all of these conversations and all of the insights that we learn every single week. You learn what we learn, basically. So vux.world/subscribe. Now, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please welcome Kishore Reddy, CTO of Yellow AI. Kishore, welcome.
Hey, Kane, thanks for having me here today. Super excited.
Thank you for joining me from your swanky hotel in Dubai. Didn't realize you were going to be over there.
Hey. Yeah, it was it was a pretty good event today. So just for a couple of hours I'm in Dubai. I'll be going back to Abu Dhabi today.
Right. Interesting. And what was the event?
It's just meeting some customers here. So
all right.
We just planned a small event in Dubai.
Yeah. Nice. And it's
amazing.
A recommended place to go, is it?
Definitely. Dubai is a recommended place to go. A lot of fun to do for sure. A lot of fun activities to do for sure.
Nice.
Amazing place for sure.
Sounds
but yeah,
good.
A lot of work on conversational AI, the kind of insights that you've been bringing into the table. It's pretty amazing, Kane. I think I've been following your podcasts and I think a lot of definitely insights you are sharing across for sure.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, that's kind of the aim, is to try and take all of the perspectives from all of the different companies and people and thought leaders and brands that are working in this and bring them all into sort of one place so that, anyone else can just listen to every episode and you'll pretty much, you'll get the gist of it, basically.
Absolutely. So, yeah. Definitely there are multiple areas and perspectives that people are working towards in conversational AI specifically, not just like you talked about Deepgram and other companies who are specifically working on specific areas of conversational AI, and there are platforms like us who are working on more horizontal way of doing things. But yeah, definitely multiple perspectives that I've been following, and your podcast in general, definitely super exciting.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Well, welcome to it. You'll get your own headshot as well, the big heads outlined and stuff like that. So
yeah, that's pretty unique in the way I've seen other podcasts as well. But the way you are putting it, the headshots are like really amazing.
Yeah, I'm debating doing I haven't got around to it yet, but I'm debating joining the NFT bandwagon and basically turning everyone into an NFT, and then the guest can kind of purchase it as a donation to a charity, like a AI charity or something like that. You know what I mean? Which would be quite a nice thing to do. I just haven't gotten round to doing it yet, but that's what I'd like to do.
We just start. I think we just did a event on metaverse. So how
All right.
conversational AI is going to change, is going to kind of transform metaverse itself. How chatbots are going to play in metaverse. I think definitely it's the right thing to. It's kind of first step to go towards
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think? I mean, we're getting to the meat of the conversation that we're going to have, but I'd be interested to get your thoughts generally on the whole metaverse thing. And I did a interview with Reed Speaker, which I think will be out soon, around the role of voice in the metaverse. Interested in your kind of thoughts on the role you think conversational AI would play in that kind of future
Absolutely.
space.
Specifically voice, right? Voice automation is going to play a key role in metaverse. Yeah, I haven't been hands-on on metaverse in general so far, but my hunch is that yeah, uh, it is going to be a game changer for sure. Because and I think it's going to be the need as well. It's essential for metaverse to function as well because you cannot have unless you have unless you have a lot of automation baked in. Metaverse is not going to survive on its own for sure. So that's is what I believe. A lot of companies and a lot of brands would love to have automation or their avatars of the brands are going to I mean automation is going to play a huge role in their brand presence in metaverse is what I believe.
Yeah, definitely. And especially in a world where you basically don't have a keyboard, or at least very difficult to use a keyboard, I think you're going to have
Yes,
voice
yes.
at the operating level, operating system level, and then voice at the kind of interaction level, and then voice potentially at the transactional level as well. Because how else would you get about and do things, you
Absolutely.
know?
Yeah, I think I've been in a conversation with other co-founders earlier, and then they were talking about deep fakes, how deep fakes are going to be a huge game changer in metaverse. But for sure, I think this is one of the components for sure is conversational AI and voice together is going to be a huge one in metaverse.
Definitely, definitely. And congratulations on the Gartner Magic Quadrant placement. Very nice kind of badge of honor that to get into that. So
Abs-
well done on that.
Absolutely, thanks for that, Ken. I think yeah, I've also I'll also congratulate rest of the folks as well. This is the first Magic Quadrant on conversational AI. Super excited to be there. But yeah, I think a lot of learnings in the process of getting to Magic Quadrant. We have multiple interactions with analysts and product sessions and roadmap analysis, and how the next few years is going to look like, and how we have been doing with multiple customers and everything. I think uh, it was a learning for us as well, going through that
Mm,
process of Magic Quadrant.
You don't have to necessarily answer this question, but it'd be good if you did. But in terms of that process, how much interaction do you like? What I'm trying to say is that is it you feeding Gartner with your roadmap and all that kind of stuff, or are they feeding into your roadmap? Like, did you learn anything that you might want to do in future over the course of that process, or was it basically like an assessment type of thing where you just tell them a bunch of stuff and they rank how they see fit?
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of both. I think, but yeah, I think learnings is also a key part of the interaction, right? I think it's how, and it's also a validation of what we are doing right. At the same time, some of the things where we need to actually focus on as well. Uh,
Mm,
how contact center space is going to look like, and then how obviously conversational AI. We've been working with multiple players in general, in customers in general, but we contact center specifically whether we should be building our own contact center solution or partner with existing players, or how is it going to look like. And a lot of these insights come from Gartner as well, because the analysts, whenever we have a discussion, because a lot of I mean they have immense knowledge, because they speak to multiple experts in this, not just in this uh, area, but also they work with customers as well, right? So a lot of
mm,
organizations as well, so we get these insights as well. So a couple of calls I have also been in the analyst, a couple of analyst calls I was also a part of, and definitely I felt that I had some learnings from those. So
mm.
it's both, to answer your question, right? It's both. So it's validation at the same time, assessment and validation at the same time, learnings as well. So
Interesting. I mean, talking of the contact center component, obviously Google's recent partnership with UJet in a more formalized fashion kind of brings that whole package together, possibly maybe for the first time that I've seen. I think potentially Uniform might have some contact center capabilities, but it's definitely an interesting play, because you would think that the contact center is the contact center, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff that the contact centers do around workflow management and analysis and
Yes.
forecasting and all that kind of stuff that you wouldn't necessarily expect a conversational AI platform to do. However, conversational AI platforms are becoming more customer experience platforms in general, and so if you talk about customer experience, you might expect that. So it's interesting how, and if you look at Microsoft's announcement of their contact center, 9, I think, out of 14 features were AI based features. It was all about having NLP being fundamental to the whole operation. The fact that you can make calls into it was almost like a byproduct of the call center, and obviously connect with a really tight integration with Lex and stuff. And so you can sort of see a world perhaps where the call center itself plus the conversational AI component does end up merging together.
Absolutely. I think that we are seeing the trend as well, right? Predominantly, contact center have been more backward facing, more agents. It's basically a software for agents, and it's been looked at like that. But if you look at conversational AI, it's more of a front-ending solution where you are directly interacting with the customer. The software itself is interacting with the customer, so it's more of a front-ending solution. I think, yeah, it's definitely not, at this point in time, not wise to build everything as a part of the conversational AI platform, but it's definitely going to be a deeper integration with these contact center solutions is going to be a huge key. It's going to make a huge difference. I mean, there are integrations available right now, and then somehow even we are able to integrate with some of the contact center solutions right now, and then we have customers. We've been serving customers with that integration as well. But what I feel is that there has to be more deeper integration, where, for example, if the call landed, for example, bot has picked up the call. Once the bot wants to transfer the context to the agent, so that itself is actually a huge thing. How do you transfer the call to the agent, but how do you transfer all the knowledge that the bot had so far with the customer? Whatever the interaction the bot had with the customer, that context also has to be transferred back to the agent. So that level of deeper integration with the contact center solution is going to be a huge thing for sure. I think it's definitely interesting, Kane, like how the space is still evolving, right? It's a lot. I mean, I feel that it's going to evolve for the next 5 to 10 years, because there's so many use cases that we are seeing on a day-to-day basis. I think it's going to evolve for the next 10 years, is what I feel, until we say that this is the boundary of conversational AI.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think you're right, to be honest. And you've only got to look at excuse me, you've only got to look at the likes of funding being poured into the industry as an example of how kind of early it is, so to speak, because all of the Observe AI we just saw today raised 125 million. All of these NLP based companies are still really in the real early stages. I mean, Yellow AI, when did you start? 2017, 2016, something like that?
No, that's an interesting thing. We started in 2014 actually.
All right,
So
okay.
that's and before the word conversational AI is coined, so that's when we started the company. So so we didn't start off as a conversational AI company. We just naturally transitioned into conversational AI company, because we wanted to actually solve one problem that existed at that point in time. Because primarily people are interacting on WhatsApp, predominantly in India when we started out. And then why can't we get similar experience for interacting with businesses? So why can't it be that simple? You just text a business and then you get your stuff done, whether you're ordering a pizza or anything. Why can't it just be a text away, rather than opening multiple applications or calling up the call center and stuff like that? Why can't it be just a text? So that's where it started. Soon we realized that we have to automate the conversations. It's not going to be, it's a huge chicken and egg problem, right? Unless you have customers, businesses wouldn't respond, and then it's vice versa. So you have to automate stuff. So we started automating. That's when we realized that this is called conversational AI. This is what people started coining the term conversational AI. We started working with more and more customers, enterprise customers, and then started solving one particular problem, which is customer support. So interestingly, uh, we are a little bit older company than most of the conventional AI companies.
Yeah, interesting. But still, not necessarily an old company, 2014, so eight years old or so. And a lot of companies
Yes,
are a lot newer than that, And as I was saying, the funding that's been put into it, I think, is a symbol or a signal that it's early, because that funding is intended to be used to then establish the companies within the market. And so I think that's probably where this movement and shaking comes around, is that the more that the platforms get funded, the more the platforms get developed, the more kind of clients start using it. It gets developed further around their needs and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden it starts blending with the other systems that exist within the business. Because as you know, and a lot of the listeners know, the conversational component is nothing unless it's fully wedded to the organization's business. You mentioned there automating the conversations. You can't really automate a conversation unless you've got the right kind of integrations into the line of business systems and whatnot. Call
absolutely.
center being a core part of that, and so it all seems to be sort of fusing together, which is interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah, as you said, it's still early phases into the I mean, yes, even now we cannot say that we drew the boundary to what conversational AI should look like. As initially we were discussing, going back to the primary the topic of discussion, the components of conversational AI. When we started off, I think we did not draw a line what conversational AI should be. So that's in fact, that was the most exciting part of our journey, or any other company at this point in time, like other competitors as well. So because we are getting to define what conversational AI is by putting block by block, unlike CRM or unlike e-commerce platforms, which are defined 20 years ago, and then still people are figuring out components. But here, conversational AI, we didn't have a referenceable uh, a product to look at, right? We started building what components should exist in conversational AI platform. So that's the exciting part, and we are still not. Even now, I believe that we still don't want to draw a line of this is what conversational AI should be. But I think we will get to more insights in coming few years.
Definitely, especially when you start to consider just sheer device proliferation on one hand, channel proliferation on the other hand, and then each device and channel has its own nuances that are not strictly language based. Like, as you'll know from having the experience on the messenger front, you've got emojis, you can send pictures, you can send documents, and so you're not necessarily always verbalizing a conversation in language. There's other symbols
Yes,
and things that
yes.
you can use as well. And so at what point does a conversation become simply just an interface? I suppose it is an interface anyway, but at what point does it stop being conversational? At what point does it start being conversational?
Yeah, that's definitely a new perspective of things, right? We so far looked into voice. We said like, yeah, voice is conversationally. I mean, that's what the automating voice is big thing. And we also said like, text, automating text is I mean, we started off with that. But now we are talking about emojis and how it can actually, how do you converse on emojis? That's a different perspective for sure. I think, yeah, this is another dimension that we are bringing in. As I said, more and more channels, and different geographies has multiple channels. I think that itself adds to the complexity for sure. And again, yeah, we have seen Alexa and Google Assistant and Google Home, and these are other kind of, unlike traditional telephony voice, these are different kind of voice devices. So where you can do multiple things. You have audio plus visual way of looking at it. For example, we have seen with Alexa, one of the devices of Alexa has a screen where you can show certain things on the screen. At the same time, you can bot can actually interact at the same time. It can play some video or display some content on the top of the screen, right? So we have seen multiple forms uh, of channels overall for interaction. And yeah, I think definitely different multiple dimensions of conversational AI, entry points of conversational AI.
Interesting. So starting from the starting point of Yellow AI, which was Yellow Messenger, actually, wasn't it, a few years back?
Yes.
So where getting to this kind of like core component aspect, I'm wondering whether we can begin maybe with where did Yellow Messenger, as it was then, begin in terms of what were the core components that we were using when messaging was the core channel, and then over the years, as you've kind of expanded from purely messenger into chat, into voice, what are the things that you've had to do in terms of the architecture to enable some of those other use cases? And then maybe finally we can arrive at what the core building blocks are that are required for those that have never done this before in order to kind of do this. Does that sound good?
Absolutely. I think that's the right way to start as well, right? Because that's how we started. When we started working with uh, companies when we got our first customer, we did not have a conversational AI platform as we call it today. So it was, we have to have a chatbot on the top of our one of the largest BFSI companies in India. So they wanted to automate a lot of their um, cross-sell, upsell use cases. At the same time, they wanted to automate their customer support as well. And what we did is we started that. First thing, first step is to basically understand the language that the user is talking about, right? So we need to have an NLP system in place. That's the core engine. So we have to start off with that engine, which that's at that point in time in 2015 to 2016, there were a couple of players doing that. For example, with.ai, which got acquired by Facebook, and then API.ai, which got acquired by Google, and then they named it. Now they changed the name to Dialogflow. So we heard about even IBM Watson, but very nascent stages at that point in time. And then we looked into those solutions, but we felt that there's a lot more to understanding the language than just using some of these existing tools. So we started on a mission of building the NLU capabilities within Yellow Messenger. So then we were Yellow Messenger. So we started with the machine learning toolkits. We started with TensorFlow, and we hired our first ML engineers, NLP engineers who can help us in building this. And that's when we started automating things in house. And then we realized it's a lot more than just intent understanding itself. Intent recognition is what people call it. There's a lot more to it than just intent recognition. And then it comes in like multiple levels of intent recognition. Like at what level are you going to understand the language? And again, when you add language if you want to support multilingual conversations, it's going to add more complexity as you move into the system. So to summarize, I think first thing that we have built is we should have a NLU capabilities which can understand the language. That's the first component, and then I think that's the component that is core to all conversational AI platforms at this point in time. I don't believe that anybody is right now uh, uh, relying on third-party tools. Every conversational AI, all the leading players, they built this conversational AI, their own way of NLU capabilities within their systems, right? And that is the core, which doesn't change anywhere. But obviously we have the way we utilize data, how we pump in the existing data that we've been acquiring for the last 5 years from the customers and their user interactions. That depends on company to company, but that's the core. And then
where do you before we move on, Kishore, where do you think the differentiation becomes on purely on I know there's a lot more to it outside of the NLU, and there's even more to it within the NLU itself as far as how you train it and
absolutely.
how you model it and all that kind of stuff. But my kind of I've been kind of like going in different spaces with this question myself over the last kind of couple of years, which is that on the one hand you have the potential for NLU capabilities to become kind of like commoditized a little bit. If you can just go to Microsoft Azure and hook up Lewis, or you can go to Dialogflow or Amazon Lex, or you mentioned there with AI and you mentioned Watson, these kind of big cloud players that provide a rudimentary NLU system. And then other players, as you mentioned, Yellow AI and others with proprietary NLU systems. So that's on the one hand, is that is one question is NLU capabilities in danger of becoming commoditized? But then at the same time, you've got, something like Casisto specializes in banking. You've got Vlooper specializing in, field maintenance and repair work and stuff. You've got different systems and different NLUs that are rising to specialize in certain very specific domains. In which case, you could see that there's value in that because it understands banking more than a general NLU, for example. So, what's your thoughts in terms of like how do companies differentiate on the NLU front? Is that something you differentiate on at Yellow AI, or do you differentiate on other things around it?
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting question, and that's the question that typically uh, 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 every player in this segment is going to be asked on, for sure, from by customers and right. So, what to first thing is like the um, the it's though it's the uh, uh, core engine, I would say, of conversational AI platforms. But the role it plays doesn't hold any value on its own. If you suffer, that's the reason that people are not able to utilize some of these existing players, like any of these conversational AI platforms are not able to use Bit.ai or API.ai or Lewis or IBM Watson, because it is not holding value on its own, because it has to be working with harmony with the existing data that you have, existing the other, how it's going to be working with existing components that you have, because it's not an API. I mean, it's not as simple as like just use the API and then build the rest of the stuff, because it will be connected into your workflows, deeper into your entire product everywhere. How this interaction or how this particular understanding that we've got from the sentence is going to be utilized as a part of the workflow everywhere else also matters. So basically, and then how you feed back the data into the NLU system also matters. So you have to retrain a lot of it. So you will have to, in fact, you'll have to clean up every now and then. It's basically a lot of maintenance activity that you have to do, so that your model gets better and better every day. So that's the reason we are not able to, or anybody else also is not able to use existing players. So even though, coming to the second question on the commoditization piece, right? You're spot on that. It is going to get commoditized. There is no question about it, right? Because more and more papers are going to be published, more and more this open source community is more and more active in in making this NLU better and better. But what is going to differentiate is what we build on the top of it. When I say building on the top of it, it's not about the application level things that I'm talking about. Even just the part of it's, again, if you uh, NLU itself. So the commoditized piece of NLU versus what you have to still build on the top of the commoditized part of NLU is still a lot. At least 70% more uh, is required to make sure you uh, make it your own and solve the problems that you have in hand. You have to you have to tune it to your requirements. At the same time, you have to feed in your data of your customers, and there are multiple, and not just you cannot actually directly import certain learnings that you got from non-chatbot based systems, so like agent systems and stuff. So it has to be a part of it, has to be a real-time data ingestion that chats or voice, the data that comes in on a real-time basis, that how do you feed in back to the NLU system to make it better on a daily basis. So you'll have to retrain it, retune the algorithms a bit. So to answer your question, yeah, even if it gets commoditized, you'll still be differentiating on your NLU with how better it understands your customer's context. So I'll put it that way.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So you began then. First problem to solve is the NLU part. You build an NLU system and it works fairly well. What's the next stage then for
Yeah.
Yellow at the time?
So that's the and yeah, the NLU system, it just keeps evolving. That's first part, right? And then the rest everything builds around it. So now let's talk about first thing, right? So the rest of the things depends on what is the target segment that you are working with. What are the customers that you are working with on account? For example, for a Dialogflow or an IBM Watson kind of a system or Louis system, there ends the circle. They don't build anything else because the rest of the things are built by the customers themselves. But when we are working with enterprises, when we started working with our enterprise customers, there is absolutely nothing in place, and then we want a chatbot to be deployed on our website. So from there to here, NLU to here, there's a huge gap. First thing is you need to have huge channel connectors layer where it just connects with so many channels across that. I think that's a smaller piece to execute. Obviously, you can just have connectors for all the channels. That's the number one thing. Obviously, that's the second component that you would require so that you can get those messages or voice calls wherever the channel connectors is the number one component. We started building that. And next important thing is like what you understood the language, right? You understood the NLU, what user is saying. You are able to understand the text, but what do you do with that? There's first thing is like you'll have to create workflows of like what you can do with the sentence. So the conversation itself has like multiple steps involved. Each of these steps are a part of a larger workflow for the customers. For example, if it is an insurance company, you will have you will be renewing your insurance policy. That itself is a huge workflow. You'll have to have every step of that conversation or every message of that conversation has to be validated with, if the policy number has to be validated with the systems, backend systems that the customer has. And then you'll have to do a bunch of other calculations, whether it's when is the policy renewal date is going to come. And there's a bunch of workflows that you have to build. So how do you build those workflows, right? I mean, that is a next big thing. So you'll have to build workflows. So now how we started off saying that, we'll build workflows for every customer. We'll build these workflows by coding the workflows ourselves. See, obviously that is not going to scale. So for the kind of scale that we are looking at, we have like 600 plus customers. A few years ago itself, I mean, a couple of years back, I think we were like around 500 plus customers. And how do we cannot code workflows for each and every customer. So what we do is like, let's have a workflow builder layer. You understand the NLU. Now we've built a workflow builder where you can build these workflows on the UI, and you will be able to connect with your backend systems on the go. So there's a workflow builder layer, and there's an integration layer that we brought in where there's multiple backend integration systems that you can actually integrate with, and these workflows connect with those backend integrations. So this was a key component. Otherwise, the customer would have to create those workflows themselves in their backend system. So this is the second important piece. I think I'll pause for here if you have any questions on this particular piece.
Yeah, I was going to ask whether is the workflow management part what you would consider a dialogue manager, or is it more of a process kind of design engine for the business process?
It's in fact both, actually. It's in fact both. When one is the dialogue manager, obviously it's just one layer above NLU. There's a huge dialogue manager, like how how do you understand the responses on specific steps. For example, user asked policy number. Now bot asks policy number, user asks like, where do I find this policy number? Now you're talking about the dialogue management itself. The dialogue management builder is one piece, and there's a huge, again, the workflow piece where you might want to connect a specific system with an API and then get data from there, and then push some things to another database and everything. So basically, this whole workflow management also is also a huge piece. So I would club both of it. So it's business process automation, workflow, business process management as well, BPM kind of things. I mean, lightweight BPM, I would say, and the dialogue management together is what we call it as conversation build. The conversation builder. It cannot be just a conversation builder. It has to be clubbed with the business workflows as well.
Right.
So that's what is the next big piece.
Interesting. So in that example you give there, am I understanding this correctly, that let's say you have a conversation which is, let's try and think of one, something like, let's say a return. Let's say that a customer is making a return, wants to return an item, and the first thing they say is, "I want to return this item." And your dialogue manager could probably understand that that intent is to make a return, and then therefore respond with something like, "Okay, well, what is your reference number, for argument's sake?" And then the customer gives the reference number, and then, correct me if I'm wrong, but it'll be the workflow management part which would then take that reference number, run off to the back end system to bring back the next steps, and then feed that back into the dialogue manager. But then sometimes you might,
Absolutely.
that's right, yeah. And then sometimes in that workflow management bit, you might need to bounce around a little bit. So, for example, check the reference number. That's one thing, and then make a second call to check to see whether or not it's within its 30-day period, and then check to see whether or not when it was delivered. Is that what you're talking about? Is in that workflow management bit, you can make a number of different
Yes,
processes
yes,
happen before you return back to the user.
yes. Yeah, absolutely. So it's number of different processes that you can actually do with multiple systems and the dialogue management itself. So that's
Yeah.
you're spot on that. And some of the customers was a very interesting thing that we have seen is some customers wouldn't have backend systems for uh, certain use cases. For example, so you would want to. I'm just giving you an example.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the things that we have seen early days of our company. So basically, there's an insurance company. You would want to, and user would come to your chatbot and ask, uh, where can I find the nearest branch so that I can just go and you know renew my policy. I just wanted to do it offline, so I just wanted to find where do you have the nearest uh, branch address, or even for example, if an automobile uh, chatbot for a I have a chatbot for a car company. I'll just ask, where is the nearest service center located. I'll just drop my car. I just want to drop my car. Where is the nearest service center located? Interestingly, what we have noticed is there wouldn't be existing systems to give this information from the customer. So most of this information is just there dumped in files, Excel files, and a ton of files. That doesn't bot has to understand from there. So this is the when I say workflow, this is also this particular piece also comes with as a part of the workflow. You can actually so you should be able to dump in data, and then bot should be able to pick it up from there. So you will so so that is another part of the workflow management. So you can build those workflows as a part. I mean, rather than building it in your systems, you can build this small lightweight systems as a part of as part of our system as well. So that we felt that that is an important component to build, because a lot of our customers at that point in time didn't have some of the systems available for handling such use cases. So we felt that that's a part of the workflow builder as well.
Interesting. Yeah, because a lot of platforms will have the ability to make an API call within a turn, maybe stack them up or whatever, but having that ability to essentially ingest, or not, it's not even ingesting data, is it? It's actually populating somewhere within the system content or
Yes,
knowledge or whatever the case may be. Yeah, it's quite interesting, quite a clever
absolutely,
way of
absolutely.
doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, the next piece of again as a part of that is like you have built the system, you have built the workflows. Now you push the system live. Now your chatbot is live. You have been getting conversations on a daily basis. The next important component that we felt is you have to analyze how your bot is doing. So the analysis piece, right? How your bot is able to, how is it able to, is it able to answer better? I mean, how typically you'll have some qualitative metrics on. You should have some qualitative metrics on how the bot is performing. Is it answering the right questions, or is it not answering at all? Or like how is it able to handle abusers, or how is it able to handle angry, agitated customers? How do you analyze them and then personalize those in the next iteration cycle of the chatbot? So it's basically learning. We when we said chatbot, we'll always talk about how it evolves. Once you, it's not like regular systems. How do you evolve it? How do you make sure your chatbot evolves every week? In fact, that's what the next piece is, that how do you analyze the conversations analysis. Conversational analysis is the next important piece, and then that's where you'll feed in a lot of information back to the bot. So you will analyze some of these conversations, what all bot did not understand, or what a bot could have answered wrong or wrongly tagged intents, and then how and did the bot take longer time to respond to certain workflows, or certain workflows failed. So all this kind of analytics on the top of conversations is the next big component, which will and how do you back that's the next big component basically.
Yeah. And how do you advise, because I'm assuming, I don't know, do you also do professional services, or is everything self-service with Yellow AI?
So we no so since day one, I think it was combination of both. We have self-serve platform right now available, but it's always we have a professional services team who works with the customers to get the bots live and build those use cases. But it's more of a customer success, I would call it, than professional services. Right now, they are hand holding the customers in multiple things, and then we're trying to make sure that lot of things now that we have a visual way of building a chatbot, or visual way of configuring these workflows, visual way of making these dialogue systems, we're pushing this more and more towards the customer, and then customer success is playing a huge role here.
Yeah, that makes sense. Fair enough. I was just trying to get to the point of whether you do actively advise customers or whether people kind of just do it themselves. So if in on this analytics side of things, I'm always curious about how people define success. So it's not straightforward, but it's understandable that you would be looking at your analytics to see, what were your mismatches and no matches, and how do you understand, where did the bot kind of misunderstand somebody or something, and then determine whether you want to feed that back into the training data and all that kind of stuff, what intent it should map to and stuff. But then on the other, that's kind of like more like the maintenance and improvement sort of layer, just from a kind of like hygiene perspective almost. But from a kind of like KPI point of view, obviously every business implements these things to try and achieve something, don't they? And some of those accomplishments might be outside the scope of the bot. For example, maybe you have a bot in a call center that's there to introduce some self-service to lower the wait times in the queue. In order to measure whether the bot's having any impact, you need to measure the wait times in the queue, which sits outside of the bot. However, there's some things that will sit within the scope of the bot. For example, we want to make sure that people can successfully change their address on their insurance, so you may have some factors within a conversation that would constitute success if someone's reached the end of the conversation, or if somebody's got midway through and ducked out or hung up or been escalated to an agent or whatever. So I'm always curious when it comes to analytics about how do you define success for a conversation, and how do you educate clients around what they should be looking for when they're trying to measure the impact that it's having.
So I have one question before we move on to that, right? Are you joining Gartner or something as an analyst? Is this the number one question?
No.
The next question is the kind of insights that you have. I think you should be starting another conversational AI company after this, because the kind of I was in fact, I wrote my notes on what is the next component that we should be talking about. You are right on to the point on what's exactly next. What is the next component that we should be talking about? So I think you should start a conversational AI company after this for sure.
Good.
Yeah, I think moving to your question, right? Yeah, definitely. We talked about conversational analytics. It's more on the bot learning perspective, not on the business perspective. It has nothing to do with the business, how it's doing or how the bot is performing as a business objectives perspective, right? But the second important thing is, like, we started calling it as a module called Customer 360 and Engage. So when it's both, you should be looking at business goals of what the bot should be doing. For example, if your bot is an insurance bot, how many how many new insurance policies did the bot sell? How many renewals did the bot make? How many queries that the bot has answered? These are again just the top level metrics that you should be able to derive. That's the analytics platform that should provide that. That is a very basic view of what it should be doing. But there should be more and more drill down way of analytics, where you can look at granular data, granular analytics, which geography, which region, what time of the year you got the best you have sold most of the most insurance policies, and what time of the day did your bot get most of the user queries on. So you should be able to do the entire analysis yourself, and we cannot rely on, for sure, again here there's a lot of debate about, few years ago there was a debate about whether we should be using existing analytics system to do this, or does your conversational AI platform should have this as a core component. Then the answer for us was very straightforward, because we had to, there were a lot of these systems, a lot of these data and a lot of this analytics are very custom to conversational AI. So we felt that it has to be built as a part of the core, as a core component itself, and we started building that. And that's one way. Once you get these analytics, the next important piece is, what do you do with those analytics? You got these analytics, you got this, that these many people are interested in your insurance, buying your insurance policy, but they did not buy. They went till the end of the conversation, but they did not pay. So what do you do with that? I mean, you will be able to analyze this, and what do you do with that is the next important aspect that you should be focusing on. So we have again, this is the next important piece, where how do you re-engage with them, right? You should be able to send scheduled notifications to them that, yeah, you dropped off here, why don't you start why don't you complete your buying the insurance policy. So this is the next big piece, right? Or your insurance date is nearing, or renewal date is approaching, why don't you pay it right now to avoid penalties or something like that? So how do you re-engage? That is, I mean, just how do you re-engage with the audience by analytics is again the next big component, adding to what you just asked. So these two go hand in hand.
Very good, very good. And thank you for that compliment, by the way. I forgot to say thank you. We'll put that as a quote on our website, and in all of our in all of our pitch decks from now on. You should work at Gartner.
I think I'm going to have another question. Like, what is the next component that we should be talking about?
Yeah, good point. Good point. Well, we'll get to that, but first I had a follow-up question on that, which is around how you initiate that follow-up engagement, because a lot of times when people talk about conversational AI platforms, they often talk about them as just being there to have conversations with customers. Whereas if you look at some of the customer experience platforms, I'm thinking of something like UJet, for example, that has all of this stuff built in, omni-channel capabilities. It'll recognize your phone number. It's got your previous calls. It'll understand likely what you're calling about based on the last thing you did on a website and be able to preempt the conversation and all this kind of stuff. And so what you're talking about here is you're not talking about creating conversations, which is what a lot of people are talking about. You're talking about creating customer experiences, which is what I would argue people should be thinking about, is the customer journey from end to end and how you can kind of provide a good experience throughout the whole thing. And most of the time you would have a conversational AI platform that just dips in at a certain point and provides one thing, one conversation, then it's done. Maybe you can feed that data into a CRM so the CRM can do its thing later on when the customer comes back to the website or whatever. But what you're talking about here is having a conversation with somebody, using the analysis and the information gathered and the context from that conversation, recognizing when a conversation hasn't gone to plan, and then initiating a follow-up, maybe through another channel, maybe sending them a text message and saying, hey, do you want to continue with the application or whatever? And so you're starting to branch into not just conversational AI provision, you're branching into customer experience, customer journey provision. So I'm just curious about, one, what is that the vision? And then two, what kind of triggers are you using to initiate that follow-up? Is it phone numbers and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, to answer the last part, I think it's multiple things. I think it's just phone numbers, or like if they are already connected with WhatsApp, you just follow the kind of WhatsApp notification, or if the user has come from Facebook Messenger or Instagram or whatever channel it is. We'll try to retarget there, or we try to understand the customer, and then you can actually you can send them a text or an email or anything like that. So, but yeah, that's the easier part for sure. But what that's interesting that you also uh, uh, said that it's a customer experience platform, more of a customer experience platform, right? I think since I have not been talking to people a lot outside for the last few years, but our the marketing team and the sales team and product marketing, everybody, they started calling Yellow AI as a customer experience platform, not a conversational AI platform. So that, I mean, that's to answer your question. We already started calling ourselves as a customer experience platform, because that's again a natural evolution, because it's a need. It's not something that we wanted to be there. It's not like, let's venture into the other areas of customer experience. It was not choice by us, right? It was not a choice for us. So it was a natural transition. It was a need for our customers as well, right? So you've got all these insights. You have got to do some kind of actionables on the top of it, like how, and the data exists with us, not them, to take the actions. So obviously that if the data is with us, we are the guys to do those actions as well. So that um, gave us a compulsion that we have to build this as well. So we started building this. I think it's been 1.5 years now, and then this is definitely proving to be the right decision. And then a lot of customers have been like, in fact, it was one of the most used component is the re-engagement module, right? So you analyze and then you re-engage. That's like definitely a huge revenue source for us as well. You re-engage a lot of these customers.
Interesting.
So we don't actually do complete CPaaS here.
Yeah,
we work with CPaaS vendors to do the last mile delivery, but we don't do the last mile delivery of the campaigns and all of that. But we have a campaign manager to schedule campaigns, and then again, these campaigns can be circled back to the conversation. So the campaign itself is not a campaign on its own. It's not an individual campaign. That whatever the campaign that we run, you can connect a workflow which will connect to a conversation. So whenever you send a text note, it's a conversation on its own. People can start conversing on that. So
yes, that's good. So would that be a separate conversation that you would fire up, or would you take an intent and pump it back into an existing?
It's just one user journey. So they dropped off, you came back, but it just picks up where
okay,
it has the entire context of the entire conversation with the user.
Wow.
So yeah, that way it's definitely proving to be the right decision that we made.
Definitely, that's definitely a unique proposition as well. I don't think I've seen that before. So you asked me a question. So we've been through the NLU, we've been through the channel connectors, we've been through the dialogue management and the business process management, we've been through the analytics and the improvement, we've been through the re-engage. The things that I would be thinking of next would be a couple of things. One is on the sticking with the analytics, is that how do you make sure that the things that you're pumping back into your NLU aren't actually conflicting and causing issues with your model if you're just piping off, random things into it that have mismatched or whatever. The other thing I'll be thinking of is channel expansion. So you've got maybe you've on one channel like a chat, and then all of a sudden you've send a text, now you're in text, and all of a sudden maybe they call, and so now you're in voice. So there's a channel kind of component to it. Other things, what else would I be thinking at that point? You've got the analysis, you've got the KPIs, you're feeding back and improving the models, you're re-engaging people. Yeah, those are the two things my two questions I would have would be one around intent conflicts and two around channel expansion.
That we talked about. So immediately after, before the business analytics, the conversational analytics that we talked about, it shows the conflict specifically.
Okay,
and then it doesn't actually. So it shows the conflicts, and it is not dumb analytics where it just doesn't show you data. It also does some of the basic cleanup of like what should it show you to take actions on. It does basic math. Yeah, these two things can be most probably part of this. This can be most probably part of this use case, which bot did not understand. It does all of that. And then also some of the things are like we crowdsourced kind of information as well that can be baked into these analytics and then showed to the user to take actions on. So this is a part of the conversational analytics module itself.
Right.
The second part is the channel connectors, right? There will be multiple channels. How do you connect all of them and then have a single user profile, so that if this user comes from voice to this thing, how do you connect them, and then how do you have the same conversation? That's again a piece that we are talking about as an orchestration layer. So how do you orchestrate across multiple channels? But I think the next important thing, as you said, right, one of the things, like, not everything can be bot itself. So there should be a human plus AI kind of an approach that typically, at the end of the day, humans have to retrain the bot whenever it's, we have to assess the bot whenever required, that we talked about in conversational analytics. But what if you have to do it in real time? In real time, user is waiting for something, but bot doesn't understand that. It's not always that bot can need it. It's not necessary that bot should say that, I cannot understand this right now, right? So why can't we have a human plus AI kind of a thing? So where human can label the data in real time, where I got this question, but bot is just waiting. Oh, what am I supposed to do right now? Rather than responding back to the customer at this point in time, you will just send a micro interaction to a human agent. Human agent can quickly say that, we are calling this as micro interaction. So human can just say that, yeah, this might be this intent. Just go ahead. So there will be agents who will just say that, yeah, this is the one. Bot just takes over the workflow from there. That's the next big piece, human plus AI. At the same time, there can be long tail tickets that human needs to take actions on, which human should be talking to the user rather than a bot. So how does this bot transfer the ticket to the user agent? This is a big component, right? Human plus AI is a big component. So traditionally, we have seen bots with Zendesk, bots with existing CRM, support desk tools, service desk tools. We believe that either a deeper integration with these existing systems, or a completely built human plus AI kind of a module. So we again took a call to go in both the directions, because in some places it's not necessarily that you will be able to replace an existing vendor for service desk. But we felt that having this, again, deeper connect with the human plus AI, bot plus agents, that will actually add a lot of value to the end user, at the same time our customers as well, so that they can take actions on it in real time. At the same time, you can feed back the data. The agents can feed back the data to the bot, so that that can be more real time. So we felt that we are calling this module as inbox. So this is a human plus AI component that we are talking about.
Nice. That is really good. That's very similar to what interactions do. I don't know if you've come across interactions, whereas they do a similar thing, which is they'll have a live agent classifying intent, but also in parts. We spoke to Lisa Michaud, who was on the podcast a couple of weeks back, and she was talking about how they will sometimes have a human take over the conversation very temporarily and then hand it back to the bot again once the context has been settled, which is fantastic.
Absolutely. Again, this is a natural transition or natural decision for us. It was organic. We didn't, again, it was a need, and then we had to build it.
Yeah.
So that's the next important component. But the last one to talk about is, to circle back your question on Kasisto kind of companies who do specifically banking, Infido specifically HR and stuff like that. So that's a next important one, right? So you should be able to have these pre-built verticalized bots built out for your so that it can be ready to use. Most of these use cases are pre-baked into it, and a lot of those learnings can be pre-baked into this vertical bots. So that's the next important thing. We call it as a marketplace. So in marketplace, we have these vertically built these bots built vertically with specific industries, with workflows predefined, configured at the same time, integrations predefined, and then tested, and basically and learnings from all existing customers, and then which all these learnings and then interns and the data, everything is all those learnings are taken and then built these vertical bots for uh, um, specifically banking, vertical automobiles, HR, IT, uh, insurance, and so all of these are like different multiple bots built out and then available on marketplace so that people can start off
Nice.
instantly. So that's the next. That's I would say that's the last module that I want to touch upon today.
Nice. Wicked. Yeah, definitely shortens the development cycle and gives people a place to start with. I'm assuming they can customize it if they want to, hook up their own integrations if they need to, but definitely giving them a helping hand at getting started, I think, is definitely sensible. There's two little bits left. I know we're on time. We're a little bit over. I know it's probably getting on a little bit where you are now. But two final bits I don't know whether you want to comment on, which is specific to the voice channel, which is speech recognition and text to speech. So I don't know how you're approaching that side of things at the moment. Any
So,
thoughts on those two components?
a couple of years back, we thought we should be doing it in house. So speech recognition and text to speech. So it was a conscious decision that we don't venture into that, because already this the just the conversation understanding and the kind of components that we're working itself is like huge. We didn't want to actually, maybe at later point in time to have more control over how the voice is being processed. Probably we might do it like late in a couple of years or later, but at this point in time we felt that it is more it's better to work with partners. And that, obviously we worked with Deepgram as well. We started integrating Deepgram with some of the voice bots. We work with Microsoft and Google in certain places, but we specifically decided not to build at this point in time. But we do tune the STTTS to our need, but we don't build everything in house there.
Yeah.
So it was a conscious decision.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think, to be honest, I mean, speech recognition is an entirely different problem, and
Absolutely.
text to speech is also an entirely different problem. It's not language understanding; it's language production, which is really entirely different problem. And so it's I think definitely wise to do that until maybe it gets to a point, which I think it will get to a point, which is on the speech recognition side, maybe it's not so much, but there's potential value in having the speech recognition and NLU working hand in hand and closer together potentially. So it's not always speech to text and then NLU. It's also speech to
Absolutely.
text plus audio understanding on top of it. A bit like what Speakeasy and stuff like that do. But it's definitely a different kettle of fish. And then on the speech production side, there's companies who are literally just specializing in that, like Respeecher and others. And so it's going to be difficult to change that. And as soon as we get to a point where it's starting to become that way now, where you can create your own bespoke voices. I think Microsoft released this ability as well. They've democratized this a little bit, which is being able to create your own custom voices. The
Yes.
more that gets democratized, the less it's going to be a need for yellow AI, because clients will basically just be able to record their own voice however they want to, produce a synthetic voice, TTS voice off the back of it, and just integrate it into your solution, kind of thing. So, yeah, probably less as important
Absolutely.
as TTS.
Absolutely. I felt that that's the right approach that we have taken. That we'll not build this in house because, as you said, right, a lot of these are commoditized, and we don't specifically require, or we don't have a need to actually deeply integrate, uh, the algorithms into the existing system, right? So there's no specific need, but one thing probably, as you said, that rather than intent recognition, the voice itself can be directly utilized as rather than converting it to text. It can be used as intent analysis in later point in time, but not any time in the next few years, because we have. I don't think that we hit a problem where we need to do that until next few years. This speech to text, text to speech, and the response times that we are getting, it's definitely really desirable outputs is what we are getting from the existing systems itself. So we are not planning to build anything at this point in time.
Wicked. Well, this has been an absolutely fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. Boys and girls, do check out yellow.ai. It is yellow.ai, isn't it? That's the address?
Yes, yellow.ai. Yeah. Or yellow
Yellow.ai.
AI is what we call it, but yellow.ai also sounds
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. The yellow. Well, I was on about the website. The actual web address is yellow.ai, is it?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah. That's it. So do visit. I'll just double check that one. Yellow.ai.
That's correct.
Yeah, cool.
Yellow.ai, that's right.
Good. I thought it was. I just flippantly put it down there. So yeah, boys and girls, please do check out yellow.ai to learn more, or just search yellow AI. It'll come up without a shadow of a doubt for more. And I will also, if it's all right with you, Kishore, I'll put your LinkedIn links and stuff like that on the show notes and stuff like that if people want to reach out and find out more and inquire about your services.
Absolutely amazing. Looking forward. But yeah, it was great insights, Ken, and the kind of insights that you have in this area is really amazing. So you kind of predicted our components as well. I think it's you should definitely think about starting a conversational AI company. And
Yeah. Well, we kind of have one. We are a consultancy. We do things like that, but we also have the analysis, the podcast, the newsletters, and content. So it's a bit of both. It's a bit of education, bit of consulting, but we don't actively build products basically. But it's
amazing.
it's the thing is it's the main thing is it's interesting. I've been doing this for 4 years now, and every single time I have a conversation like this, I learn something. I meet someone new, and it is just a fantastic thing to do. So I appreciate you spending time with us, especially given that you're away at events and all that kind of stuff. I appreciate you carving the time out.
Hey, thanks for having me on the podcast, Kane. Definitely. Well, looking forward to more of these.
Nice one.
Thanks.
Nice one. Cheers. Thank you, everyone.
Definitely. Cheers. Thank you
Next
so
week.
much.
Cheers. Next week, boys and girls. Oh no, sorry. Tomorrow, actually, it's Matt Portillo, who's joining us from Amelia, and we're going to be talking deeper about conversation design and why conversation design is a marathon and not a sprint. So please do tune in for that. Visit yellow.ai for more information about Yellow AI, and visit videox.world/subscribe to get all of these in your inbox as and when they happen, and even before they happen, you can come and join us live. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Kishore. It's an absolute pleasure.